So hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to this edition of Soccer Hub Talks. My name is Ricardo Alveira. I'm the CEO and founder of Soccer Hub. As many of you know, Soccer Hub is an online education platform for soccer experts. I mean, soccer scouts, soccer analysts, soccer coaches. So you'll find there many top content about all of these subjects. Before we start this edition of Soccer Hub Talks, I would like you to please introduce some information about yourselves on the chat box, such as the country that you are based in, and also some information about yourselves. If you are a soccer coach, a soccer analyst, a soccer manager, please introduce all of that information on the chat box so we can adapt a bit more our conversation. Also, if everything is okay with audio and the video, please click on the like button. Please do it now so we can be aware if everything is okay with the video and the audio. Okay, thank you very much. So today's Soccer Hub Talk is about playing soccer where soccer is not the main sport. And for that, we have invited Ramon Soria from FC Edmonton and Oliver Minatel from Cavalry FC. The panel will be moderated by Nuno Milheiro. Hello, guys. Good afternoon. Nuno, is everything okay?
Yes, everything okay. It was my headphones. I was just taking them off.
Okay, guys. Ramon, thank you very much for accepting our invitation. Oliver, it's a big pleasure. I'm going to leave you guys with Nuno and see you in about 1 hour. Okay, guys? Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Ricardo. Hello, Ramon. Hello, Oliver. Thank you for accepting our invitation. It's a pleasure to have you guys here and to share your experience. As you know, we are here to talk more about your experience in countries where soccer is not the main sport. So I'm going to do a small introduction, okay? And I also want to thank everybody that is watching live, as always. And we have people that they are all with us every week. And please, like Ricardo said, ask also your questions. It's a good opportunity also. And we are going to select some questions also to ask them. So we have two players from the Canadian League. They played also in different countries like US and Australia and also other countries. We have Ramon Soria, that is a Spanish player that was at his formation between Villarreal in Spain and Mallorca, also in Spain. That are two good teams, very good teams with a good tradition for me in the youth teams also, and also Mallorca, Ramon, with a very good tennis player, no?
Yes. My opportunity to play with very good players.
Yeah, exactly. And we have Oliver, that is Brazilian. Of course, Brazil is, of course, probably the country in the world with more quality in terms of technical players, and that he completed his formation on PSV Eindhoven and also in Nacional de Madeira in Portugal. So it's a pleasure again to have you guys in here. So like I said, we are here more to talk about your experience that by curiosity started for both of you, I believe, in 2014 when you moved to Canada. Well, is that right?
Yeah.
2014. So first, I can ask Ramon. Ramon, how it came for you? How it came across the opportunity to go to play to North America, and how it was the experience and the first impact, and if you can tell us a bit of the process, how it happened back then, back the time.
Yes, back that time, I was a little bit maybe tired of the Spain Second Division B. That it was a category where I was playing for the last 4 or 5 years. Yeah. And I was feeling that every year I have harder to promote to Second Division. So that summer, before to move to Canada, I tried to move abroad. I was almost, to sign in Romania, First Division. But I was there for 2 months. It's a long story. I have some problems with the salary, some problem with the contract. And after that, I was so tired that I talked with an agent, a Spanish agent, that at this moment he proposed me if I wanted to change my career, if I wanted to go to North America, to the NSL, to a new club in Canada. So at this time, I thought that was the best for the next step in my career. I thought that I needed to change. Really was a big change, because from Europe, from Spain, to change to Canada, a new club, a new franchise, everything was completely different. But I met a very good group of people, good coaching staff. That was Marc Dos Santos, the current coach of Vancouver Whitecaps. And at the end, I think it was a good decision. The season is true that was not the best season that we had, but it was a good experience, and I'm happy to take this decision in 2014, because this is why right now I'm here. I'm in Edmonton, have played many years in North America, and I'm happy of my career here.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for sharing that, Ramon. Very interesting story. Oliver, same question for you. So, of course, you came from a different background than Ramon. Your story obviously is different, although you arrived in the same year. So, how it came across to you the opportunity to go to play to Canada at the time?
Yeah, so it was basically through Marc Dos Santos as well. Okay. And he was working in Brazil at the time, and I had just come back from Portugal. So he got in contact with me, and the project was really nice. It was something that, it was a new adventure, something that was very different from what I was used to. And as soon as I got to Canada in 2014, I realized that it was something that I enjoyed, and the lifestyle on and off the pitch as well. You're able to do many other things. So I think I fit in very well, and I was happy to take that decision at that time, and I believe it opened doors to come back last year to Canada for sure.
Exactly. Thank you. And was the language a barrier in the beginning when you arrived for both of you? Also, in terms of adaptation, was it not?
For me, at the beginning, it was hard. The English, because at school I was good in English, but it's not the same. When you go abroad, you realize that it's not the same. At the beginning, it's true that English was hard. I was lucky that I speak French, and we have a lot of guys in the team that speak French. And also, I was lucky that I met Oliver the first day I arrived to Canada. I remember it was minus 25 degrees. It was hard. And I met him, and he speak Spanish, he speak Portuguese, he speak German, he speak a lot of language. So he helped me also a lot with translation. And I think we were lucky that to meet each other was easier for both to adapt to Canada, to the team. Also, Marc Dos Santos speak French, speak Spanish, Portuguese. Yeah. So also it was easy for us to have a coach that speak many languages.
Okay.
Yeah, I spoke English, so it was easier for me. But I think our group at Ottawa for the first season, we had a lot of guys coming from Europe. So it was very multicultural, and we had a very good locker room. So it helped out guys coming in from many places. It was also the first year of the club, but we had a good culture. So I think that kind of helped guys that didn't speak the language or that had to adapt to North America, which was our case. And I remember well the day that I arrived and met Ramon, and everything was new for us. It was snowing. I had seen snow before, but not as much as when we arrived in Ottawa in February, minus 30. So it was good.
But it's interesting. You touched a very interesting point. This is a conversation. This is not an interview. Like, we are here to share ideas, and it's interesting. You touched the point, Oliver, that I think you said everything. You had a very good and a very close a locker room they were like a good group, and sometimes you can even have groups that all speak same language, or Spanish, or Portuguese, but you don't go well with each other, and you cannot communicate even if it's the same language. And sometimes even if you don't speak the same language, but inside the pitch, or you can help each other, and the things result. And that's also an interesting thing about football. And yeah, it's a very interesting point, the one you touched. So also in terms of the soccer, not only the quality, we are not only talking about the quality, because everywhere there is different qualities, but also in terms of the way how to play. For example, let's say Brazil have a lot of quality, but the football is different, is played in a different way than in Europe, for example. But we cannot compare. But in terms of football, what were the main challenges for you guys in the pitch? Was in terms of competitive way? It was in terms of the way it was played? It was the physical way? What were the main challenges? For example, this case, possibly the weather was also hard, yeah, the conditions.
For me personally, it was more, I think, maybe the culture. In Spain, we train a lot the technical thing. It's true that with Marc Dos Santos, the methodology, because he was his education was in Portugal and Europe, the training was very similar to what we have in Europe. But at the beginning, I remember we tried to play, nice football, 4-3-3, try to play on the ground, and it was hard because at the end, I think for me it's a big difference between North America and Europe, the way they train when they are young. In Spain, for example, they teach you how to learn the game, understand the game, read the game, a lot of both positioning, how to control, what to do in every situation. And I think in North America, it's more analytic. You have great players that are very good technical, they are great physical, but I think on the tactical way, it's a little bit different. So for me, I struggle a little bit on movements, on I don't know, on the tactical side. I saw that the pace was slower. I don't know. That's for me was the biggest challenge, and I still, now that I have been here for 5 years in North America, still I feel the difference. That so many times you want to play quicker, but they didn't see the movement. Defending, sometimes you are clear that you are going to press one guy, and the only pass he has is you have to cover one line of pass. So you know that he's going to cover but they don't cover you. For me, on the tactical way is the most challenging for me. Because it's different, and also on the physical way. Also, I was not used in Spain to go to the gym. In Villarreal, in Mallorca, in national team, we don't go to the gym. We don't run with the ball, without the ball. And here we do more work in the gym, more work without the ball, and it's okay. I know that we have to be fit, but it's not always easy when you come from a culture of training everything with the ball, everything in a game situation. So that's the most challenging for me.
Yeah, I think the physicality makes it a different game, because if you don't reach the level of fitness and physicality that they play in, you won't be able to show your qualities tactically or technically. So that's where in Ottawa, particularly in the first season, I was there for 2 years. We had a lot of games that we would drop points because of this. The way that Mark had and planned playing didn't work exactly because of the players we had, the characteristics that we had. And for the second season, we adapted that, and then we had a great run and reached the final and won the fall season. Because that's the same, what I think too. Technically, the players are good, but the physical approach is a big focus. So for when you're coming from outside, maybe you're used to a more tactical game where you can play differently, and you get here as a foreign player, you have to adapt. Or else I've seen in all those years that we're here, many good players with high profiles who played in big teams in Europe or in South America, in Mexico, and they come and they can't adapt because they're playing with players who theoretically are technically a step lower, but the tempo of the game is high.
Yeah, definitely. We had a chance. I don't know if you had a chance to watch. We already had. We talked about football in the US and in North America before, and yeah, we have different generations. We had Antonio Simões that played in the generation of Pelé, Beckenbauer, George Best in the US, and then we also had, like 2 weeks ago, Abel Xavier that played for LA Galaxy with David Beckham, and they said the same. It's like the basis is like the athlete is a pure athlete, and then, like Oliver said, you can develop the technique and you can develop the tactics, but all the bases are and it's also interesting thing that that Abel Xavier shared with us, that he believed is the base for everything. Is the part of that the physical part, that you are athlete. If you are well in that part, of course you can. All the other things, you are more prepared to improve them. So it's also interesting that you share that opinion. And it was what was struggling more for both you guys. So in terms of you both started in Canada, and then by coincidence also we had a transition to the US, and then you went back to Canada, correct?
From Canada, I went back to Europe, to Slovenia.
Yeah. I know that part. Yeah, you went, but
Slovenia, and then I came back to Puerto Rico, and from Puerto Rico I came back to Spain, and then Canada again. Yeah.
Okay. So and you, Oliver, you also had
Yeah. So I was 2 years in Ottawa, then 2 years in the US. 1 year in Australia, and now back to Canada last year. So, but same as Ramon, if we didn't come in 2014, the market is it's a difficult market to come in.
Yeah.
So I think it was important to open doors, and we were able to come now last year in the first season of the CPL.
That's great. And how it was did you find many differences between US and Canada on the level that you were playing?
We played the same league, right? So it didn't change much, because our league, when we came in 2014, we played in the NASL, which was the North American League. So it was the same league. The only difference is we both actually went to Puerto Rico, which was so we competed against the same team.
Yeah, just the location was different. Yeah. So yeah, of course. And from the time that you moved back now to Canada, and especially in your case, Ramon, what are the main differences between that you see in the Canadian football from 2014 in the last 6 years, let's say? It's a big change.
I think in 2014, like he say, Oliver was the first year of Ottawa Fury, but the league was the NSL, so it was a second division league in US that has more years of story. So the difference, right now, maybe I don't know. I can't say that we are at the same level that we were in 2014. But because for Canada is the first year of the Canadian Premier League, so I think in 5 years term it's going to grow. But to be the first year, the level was good. It was better than what I thought, and I think every year is going to grow more. The quality of players is going to be better. Even Canadian national team, you see that every year has better players. Even now. Have Alphonso Davies, Jonathan David, two of the best youngest players in the world. So I think it's going to grow, but it's true that maybe for me it's similar the level right now that was in 2014 when I arrived here. The difference was that in NSL maybe you had bigger names. You had Raúl, Marcos Sena, Samaras, these kind of guys that you don't have in the CPL. But probably the level is very similar.
I think that for Canadians, the difference is huge, because we were in Ottawa and we had less Canadians in our team than all the teams have now, right? So the platform that this league is creating for the Canadians players is huge. So we would have, because United States American players didn't count as foreigners. So in our team in Ottawa, we had many American players who didn't take the 7 foreigner spots, right? So I see today guys that back then wouldn't have the chance, Canadian players who would maybe come for trial with us, but because they didn't have professional experience, they wouldn't be able to make it, right? So it was harder. And now you see that they're receiving the chance to play, and some of the boys did really well. And I think that's important for the Canadian players and the league and the national team. What Ramon mentioned, it's huge. 2014, if you look at the players, maybe 1 or 2 were in top clubs in Europe, and now basically the starting 11, all of them are playing at a very high level. So I think that shows how Canadian soccer is growing in the last years.
Yeah. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Yeah, Ramon.
Yes, I completely agree with Oliver. The big difference is with Canadian players, because before you can have Ottawa Fury or FC Edmonton, my club, was in NSL, but American players were not a foreign players. So you can have even more players from US in a Canadian club than Canadian players. So right now it's different. Right now, all the team are Canadian. Just we have 7 foreign spots, and it's a very good exposure for Canadian players. It's a good league for them to develop. So I think for Canadian players, for Canadian national team, for the soccer in general in Canada, is huge, and it's very good to have a Canadian Premier League.
Thank you both. We have a question here from Deborah Scholz. Hi, Deborah. Deborah watching us regularly. So the question is, how was the mental aspect of the game different in Canada than where you come from? Oliver, you can start.
I think here it's a different. I wouldn't say just in games, but there's a cultural difference in sports in football, because it's not the main sport. So there is this element of sometimes in training, even guys seemed a bit more relaxed. Well, okay, especially in the youth. When you hit a professional level, it increases. But when we watch, or guys coming up from the youth system, when I had to train with the first team when I was in Portugal and I was 17. It was like a final of a World Cup, and here they come relaxed because maybe I'll become a soccer player or not. It's not like it's their only chance, They have many other opportunities in life, other paths that they could follow. So I think there's the difference of maybe not having that much of a desire and competition, and so sometimes they seem a bit more comfortable than in other places where it would be the main sport and where you actually depend on that for your future. And that sometimes could reflect in a game and during the season, throughout the season.
Okay. And Ramon, do you agree? Do you think, do you want to add anything else?
Yes, completely agree. I think Oliver explained very well. Here, the youth players, not everyone, but most part of them, soccer is an option, but it's not the only option. In Spain, you ask for a player that is U19, and they're going to ask to answer you. It's my only option. Just I want to be a football player. I don't care if I'm going to get a small salary. This is my dream. And here you don't see you have some players that that is the only option and they want to become pro, but there are other young kids that they don't have this fire inside. It's like, okay, soccer is another option, but I can be, I don't know, a doctor, dentist, anything else. And I think also another mental aspect that is different from me from North America to Europe is about the promotion and relegation. Here, at the end of every season, there is no relegation. So you see that the last games of the season, the level drop a lot because there are some clubs that they are playing for nothing. And in Europe, you see that the teams that are playing for relegation, they are going to be competitive until the last game. So I think it's a mental side that I know that in North America, the system they have is good for them because it works in other sports. I'm not complaining about the system they have, but I think that on the mental aspect, in the last 4 or 5 games, when there are some clubs that are playing for nothing, the mental aspect is different, and the motivation you see in players is not the same that at the beginning or in the middle of the season.
Completely. That's normal in a human, and human when you are doing something, like when you are competing, of course, it's different for something. And I'll add an extra thing. So we believe, like you were saying, that there are more opportunities for Canadian players, and it's also great for you both, for sure. You are proud that being part of the first year of the Canadian League, it's something that will stay in history, and helping also to develop the Canadian soccer. And do you also think that with more opportunities on the Canadian players to reach the national team or to have more opportunities in the first team, do you think the young kids will look to soccer like there will be a bigger percentage of kids that will look to soccer as a first option, or do you think it will stay the same? Obviously, it's a process that takes years, no? Because before they were looking for a league that was mixed, like you said, with the US, and now they see that is a proper Canadian league. So that can make all the difference also in their mentalities. Do you think that will also affect that or not?
Yes, I think, of course, the change is going to be huge, because before the young kids that they were playing in the academy, the only option they have was 5 clubs in all Canada, 5 professional clubs. That's nothing. It's very hard. So a lot of them, they were playing in academy, and then they were turning 18. And what was the option they had? To go abroad, to pay for a test in Europe. And it's hard because in Europe they are foreign, in US they are foreign. So they didn't have any option. Right now, it's completely different. At least they have 8 clubs in the Canadian Premier League, where most part of the guys are Canadians. So I think it's going to be huge for the soccer in Canada. And now a lot of kids, they are going to see like soccer, it could be an option for them. And in the long term, to play in a league for 10 years, to maybe to promote and go to a better league, and even to play for national team. Right now, 2026 is going to be World Cup in Canada, US, and Mexico. So all these young players that right now are 16, 17, 18 years old, they are going to be maybe 26 years at this time for the next World Cup. And it's going to be a very good time to represent Canada in the World Cup. So I think for sure the Canadian Premier League for Canada to host the World Cup is going to make an impact, a change in the way they are developing players, and of course it's going to change the mindset of the players and have soccer as first option.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I totally. It's for me the turning point is when you're a kid, and I'll use Calgary as an example. You have the chance to watch and to live professional football in your own city. So 2 years ago, who are you going to support? The team that's in Vancouver? Are you ever going to go watch them live? I think you don't create this relation. And now they have this. And if you look at, I have 2 examples of guys in my team who are from Calgary, Carducci, our goalkeeper, and Zader, defender, and they made the national team playing for Cavalry. So if you're a young player, you're looking at them and you're saying, wow, this could be my path, right?
Yeah.
So even for players that are outside Canada now in leagues that aren't that established, they'll think, well, maybe it's better if I go back to Canada because the national team coach is watching, right? So they have this chance, and they for kids that are growing up, they think maybe rather than before they had to go to Europe to try, and it's difficult. Here they're in a better environment to grow, and they all have all the attention from the media, from the coaches, because as you mentioned before, that when we were playing in the United States, the only actual game that fired up the fans was Ottawa against Edmonton, because it was a Canadian.
Yeah.
And now you have this rivalry inside the country, and that helps promote the game, and I think that's really important.
Yeah. Do you also think that, of course, the dimension of the country, that is a very big country, is it possible to spread even more and to replicate to other areas of the country, other places, and to create a bigger league? And
for sure. With the amount of cities that well, we've been hearing, right, like talks, and I believe that in the next 5 to 10 years, it has to be a long-term project, because you also don't want teams coming in and going out, which was one of the problems in the NASL, which led them to fold. Too many teams would come in and then stay for 1 or 2 seasons and didn't have the resources to continue. So in Canada, they're doing everything step by step, growing gradually, and it's a big country. It's a first world country, so
yeah.
everything is in the hands of Canadian football to grow, and I'm sure that it's going to work out.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you that actually, because I think it's interesting that you are the Canadian League is doing step by step, like starting in a proper way, 8 clubs doing test how it works, and then you can replicate, rather than to do everything already like all the nation, with clubs everywhere, but slowly, and then the things can work, of course, in a time frame of maybe 5 or 10 years, but maybe in 10 years we are talking about a very good country that can compete against the best. It's a process that it takes a while, of course. I also wanted to ask you, what are the main pros and cons of playing in a country where soccer is not the main sport? If you can say there are pros and cons. Of course there is.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you grow up with the desire and the expectation to be playing in a country where football is the main sport, and you want to play in front of 50,000-60,000 people every week. But the reality isn't that for us right now, and I mean, I think the pros and cons for playing, there aren't really many pros, but the quality of life that Canada as a country gives you, that's where it makes it interesting, and everything else involved in the sport here, which is growing a lot. So I think we're a part of a system now. We're helping it to grow, and they also need guys from the outside to come in and to support the league and to help it grow, because it's what brings people, right? It's what brings people to watch. It's interesting. Every other league in the world has foreigners, and I think that we're in a position now where we can help a lot to build.
Yeah. And do you think also, for example, because it's, of course, everybody dreams to play in the big leagues, yeah, but also it's Ramon in the beginning touched in a very important aspect. He was playing in Romania, for example, 2 months, and it's a league that is a historical league, with many years, and he had problems. He was not getting paid, or, for example, that maybe he had more visibility, but in other hand, he had problems like getting his salary. Also, in a family in the family side, maybe you are not so much recognized. You can have more normal life and more opportunities also to and possibly, yeah.
I think that fits into to things outside of the pitch, right? Like
exactly.
the quality of life here, it's a first world country, so you know what to expect. So you know that you whatever you agreed with the club, you will get it. You know that you're gonna live in a good city. All those things, all those variables that you have to take in consideration. Obviously, if you're out for dinner and you're in Brazil and you just lost a game, you're gonna get people harassing you. Well, here there is more respect, but that's in all aspects, not just in football, right? So those are the things that, for me, made a difference to coming to Canada again, because I knew what I was getting. It's what you said. Maybe you have an offer to go to Asia to make 3 or 4 times more, but you might not get paid. You might live in a bad situation. Guys who are bringing family, starting a family. Those are the things that you have to think about too.
Yeah, exactly. I think for of course, from my perspective, seeing from outside, I think that it gives the idea that the football player as a person inside the club and also by the supporters are more respected, even if it's not in such a high level. Because, for example, let's say the player that plays on the first division in Brazil, for example, if you are one of the top players that plays for Flamengo, for Corinthians, let's say it, like if you win a game, you are the best. If you don't win a game, you will have a hard time. The same in Spain, Barcelona and Real Madrid. But let's say lower teams, on the table, possibly the recognition you have also on the street, and you don't get so much respect if you are not. Usually those teams have 1 or 2 big players, and the other players are not so much stars like the others, let's say it. So, and they are not so much respected also. So probably there, even if you are playing in a league that doesn't have so much visibility, in there you can be the idol of the kids from your own from your own team, from the youth team, from the kids in the city. Also that can be a good thing. Maybe you don't have a recognition everywhere in the world, but you have in the place where you are, if it makes sense. And the club and the club and itself respects you more as a player. Doesn't see you just like that you are get paid just to do this, like respect you as a human being.
Yeah, because as well, the Canadian clubs, as you said, for the world aren't big clubs. But if you're a kid and it's the club that you're supporting and you're from the city, they will see us like when we were kids in our home cities, like we would see a player from a big team.
Exactly.
So we're an example, and that's what makes it very respectful. And I think the interaction here between players, fans, even in the club, the way that you're treated is different. I've had experiences, obviously, where I've seen players being treated in a way which I don't think is correct. And here in Canada, they treat you more as a human. They see more the human side rather than just the product, which is the player, because the player is obviously a product from the club. So
I think Nuno, like everywhere in the world, there is some pros and some cons.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And in every league in the world, and every player has to realize what they want in the life. And of course, like you say, Oliver, if we choose to be in Canada, it's because of the quality of the life and how the club, how the people treat you. I think Canadian people are fantastic. Are very nice, are very polite. It's quality. You are not going to have the problems that maybe in other leagues. That you don't know what's going to happen if you lose 2 games. Maybe you cannot go out. Maybe you can have problems about salary. Here, everything, they respect you as human, like he was saying, Oliver. And of course, but the cons, of course, are that you are not playing in front of 50,000 people. You are playing in front of 5,000. It's true that it's the beginning of football here, so there are many difficulties that maybe If you were in Spain, in Brazil, in other leagues that have more culture, we didn't have this kind of problems. I mean, of problems of developing, of have more people in the football. But at the same time, it's very nice to be part of this story. For me, that's what's most I like. You know, like you say, Oliver. Right now, we are making history in a new league. In Spain, in Brazil, we were another player, another. But right now, but right now we can be a reference, an example. We can have the next generation, and we can say maybe in 10, in 20 years, we can say that we were, the first players, the first foreign players to help grow the football, soccer in Canada, and hopefully, Canada maybe 2026 or 2030 is going to be a country that has option maybe to go far in the World Cup. I'm not going to say to win, but maybe never, if they grow a lot and be part of the history of the soccer in a country. I think that's the most exciting for us. Recognition, maybe the recognition for us is going to be in the long term. It's not going to be right now to go. It's not like in Europe, you go to a restaurant, people stop you, they invite you to dinner. Here, maybe the people on the street, they don't know you. But at the same time, also, maybe it's more comfortable. You don't have this kind of pressure. You can go out calm. You are another normal person. Like in Europe, in South America, you know that as a professional player, you have some responsibilities and also, like you say, Oliver, you lose one game and you cannot go out to go dinner with your wife. You are going to have problems. Here in Canada, people is going to respect you, and that's good. And also the way you can talk with the fans, it's like it's closer. It's like more a family, and I like it. I like this.
Yeah, that's very interesting what you are saying, and you said that the recognition can come in long term, and like you said, it's true that sometimes in Europe a player can be recognized now, but the people in football, they have short memory. Or you are a top player, or after you struggle, and possibly if we can book already a webinar for 10 years time from 10 years from now, and you will look back and you will be references. Not only because the way you play, because also what you are doing in here, because you are to people that you are also teaching the others. You are not just there as football players. You are also as humans with experience, different experiences. Also, Oliver had experience, for example, Ramon, you were saying about the supporters. Oliver had experience for sure. In Portugal, sometimes we have 5,000 or less in the first division.
That's something that I tell people when they ask me, and they're like, but the difference, I was in Portugal for 2 seasons in the first division, and other than the games against the bigger clubs, top 6, have games with 2,000-3,000 people in small stadiums. That's the reality in many of the first divisions in Europe, other than the Premier League, Bundesliga, Italy, maybe. And then when you come here, first of all stadiums are nice, the facilities are nice. So these are things that you start to consider as well, right?
Yes, that's true. That I was also in first division in Slovenia. We play Europa League, and unless you were playing against Maribor or Olympia, that they have big fans, you were not having more than 5,000 people. And believe me that if you were not winning a game, you were you were not calm like here, and they were maybe the same fans, but here it's more familiar. I don't say that you are going to have problems. You have another kind of pressure.
Of course.
And the other point. The other point that you mentioned about being an example and helping out, I think that's the main thing, because bringing our professionalism to this league, the young guys, they're very keen to learn here, and that's good. They like to listen. If they look at you and they see what you're doing, this guy has been playing professionally for 10 years. He's doing something right. So the attitude every day, and it's not just us. We have some other Canadian players who also had the chance to come back now, who are more experienced, and they are able to help also this new generation. So I think that's where we're really important in this system, because if you have, it's, the league is obviously made to produce players, but if you have a team with everyone who's 20 years old, they're not going to grow as much. If you have more experienced players who are able to help them achieve their goals in the long term, and be an example for them on and off the pitch as well.
For sure, for sure, definitely. So let's just go, because I think, Ramon, you didn't have the chance to play in Australia, but Oliver had this part. Just briefly, did you find it much different in Australia? Of course, the weather and everything, but in terms of soccer, did you find very different? It's different lower level. It's in a
I think that you can't even compare North America with what they have and the system that is being created here with Australia. Australia, even the A-League is, I think it's far behind from what we have here in North America.
Okay, great, thank you, Ramon. You guys also are privileges that you have the chance to, of course, soccer is not the main sport, but on the other hand, you have many interesting sports and top world sports close to you. Like do you follow also other sports in particular, or you try to learn also with different sports, because you have that chance over there? And is there any sport in particular that you are interested on and that you follow, or you try to learn things, or in terms of training, or
Here hockey is huge. Hockey is the main sport, and it's a sport that I like. I have been in the stadium watching the NHL games of the Oilers, and it's very funny. I like. I'm not, a big fan to go to every game to see updates, but I like to watch some games. Also, football games also are good. I'm fan of every sport, and here it's good to watch North America sports. When I was also in the US, I had the opportunity to watch NBA games live, baseball games. So every time I can, I try to watch games of other sport, and of course here hockey.
Okay, but do you think that also is important even for your future, if you be linked to football, and even now that you play, that you can learn also with other sports in many ways, also with the atmosphere inside the sport, the way the sports, the many things. We know that many soccer coaches, they take ideas from other sports. For example, we can say a Portuguese manager, Jorge Jesus, that is in Flamengo. He was one of the if not, I believe he was the first one to take an idea from the NBA, the way they cover in the free kicks, like in the corners, like to block the players, like so some ideas you can adapt. It's something that you try to understand the other sports, how they are built and the way they train, even if as athletes, or it's something that you don't pay much attention.
I think you can get some ideas. I don't know if you can transfer to football everything. It's true that a lot of people get some ideas of Phil Jackson, of the way he managed the locker room, of the way he made some rotation. Of course, always there are things that you can adapt to football, but it's not everything. I think there are different sports.
Yes.
The way I watch more this kind of sport is more like a fan, just to enjoy. When I watch football, soccer, it's one more I try to analyze, to think more how can I grow, when I can learn more. But when I watch hockey, baseball, I watch just enjoy. Yes, it's true that, for example, our conditioning coach was a former conditioning coach of hockey, and I asked a lot of questions, about how they were preparing a hockey player for pre-season, how they prepare during the season. And there are things that are good that we can transfer, but there are other things that I think is different. At the end of the day, hockey, basketball, you can maybe play 1 minute, 2 minutes, and you can go to the bench. In
Yeah,
football, it's different. You have
yeah.
to play for longer, and it's different.
That's also a pro. That's something that you can also follow from close. And of course, it's like small ideas. Like you said, you can take an idea from Phil Jackson, the way, for example, a coach can take an idea from another sport. But for example, Michael Jordan tried to play. We lost Oliver. I think it was his connection. He's coming back. Michael Jordan tried to play baseball, like we know. It was, that's the example. And even he said that he had to adapt all his body to a different kind of sport, and he was a top sports player. So that's.
I think you can use the knowledge in other sports to your own sport, but not everything. You have to select what you can choose. But for me, since I was here in 2014, the main thing I learned from other sport is off the pitch. The way they manage.
Exactly. Yeah.
They are the number ones. They are how they create the event, the atmosphere in the game, before, during, after, and right now.
So yeah, you go. It's all package. You don't go only to. That you pay, but you go to enjoy a full package of. Doesn't matter the result only, but yeah.
I remember when I was in 2014 in Ottawa, there were some games we were playing. I remember in Indiana, in US, in some parts that we were playing maybe at 7 in the afternoon, and people were there from 2 p.m. There were some games for the kids. They were barbecue. It's like more an event for all the family, for all day. You engage people. You have the mascot in every club. So I think right now we are learning in Europe, but for many years we were behind them. Right now we are taking some tips from other sport, the way North America manage the events. And you can see, for example, I can see the example in Spain. In Spain right now, the product is much better. You see the clubs that they have some clubs with the mascot. You see the clubs that they create some events before the game. Everything, is
merchandising. It was all. Even the Premier League, they went to learn with American sports. And I know also a subject that you like, and it's something you like, is scouting. Yeah. So, do you think that also another thing that it was like we are talking about other sports? There was a film that you watched, Moneyball. It was a film with Brad Pitt. That is something that can to make a revolution on scouting, but many people didn't understand that baseball is completely different from football, and the things you can analyze are completely different. There is many more variables, many more things in football that it's much harder to analyze. In regards to scouting, and in this case, you can tell about all the experience you had in your career. Do you think, for example, in the US, we know that scouting in other sports is developed. There are scouts everywhere. It's common sense. Everybody knows. How is it in football, in soccer, in the US, in Canada, and also in other countries where you've been? And if you think it's something that the soccer in general still needs to give the next step to be,
I think, for example, in North America, since years ago, like you say, in other sport, they take in consideration the stats a lot, much more than even in Europe. And I believe that stats are important, but in a balanced way with the human eye. So I think it has to be a balanced way. I'm a follower of Monchi, technical director of Sevilla, also Victor Horta, that is the technical director of Leeds United. I agree with them. Both of them, they use the technology, they use the stats, they use the big data for scouting, but they use like in a preliminary round or in a final round.
Just to confirm, or is to filter. Or is to filter in the beginning, or is to confirm in the end.
That's it. Just to make some filters. So, and I think it's a tool that is very good, because at the end it's going to save you time, it's going to save you money, and of course it's going to help you, to maybe to scout a range of more players, of more leagues. So I think it's a very good tool, but I don't think the stats or the big data can replace a scout on human eye. I think at the end, the last word, you have to see the player, because there are some things that the data doesn't show. And for me, it's very important that they have played in many years abroad, and it's the adaptation. How the player is going to adapt for this league. How the player is going to adapt for the way they are playing soccer. How I don't know, if he has a wife, he has kid, they're going to be happy. And this is an important part that we have to take in consideration, I think, for scouting. And right now, you see in the bigger clubs in Spain, in England, they have a department that is the player care department. And I think that's very important. That's very important, because if you pay for a player, imagine a Spanish team, 20 million. And after, you don't care if he's happy in his city, if his wife is happy, you are losing the investment. It's like an investment. If you are paying 20 million transfer fee, you have to take care of your investment on the pitch and off the pitch.
But do you think? I was just wanted to ask you, because I know that you believe a lot in scouting, and it's something that you follow and you read and you take even courses and everything. And but don't you think it's strange? At least the reality I know. The reality is I know more in Europe, but also some reality in the US and other countries. Don't you think it's strange that if we talk about Manchester United or big clubs, they have a huge scouting department, because they already understood that is very important if they are going to invest. I think the only department in a club that pays itself is the scouting department. If you make a good choice on a player, or if you decide not to go to get a player that is going to cost you 40 or 50 million, you pay the department for 10 or 20 years, So, but the clubs don't see it as an investment. They see it like an expense, And don't you think that's a bit strange when in these days, like every time the clubs they analyze everything, they analyze the opponent, there are so many staff working on a club. Don't you think it's vital to have a scouting department that is working for a club because many times if you join the best players, you don't have the best team,
I'm going to say you one thing, my personal opinion, and I think a scouting department is huge. It's very important. I think every department in a club is important, because also you need the marketing department, because it's a source of revenue are marketing. A source of revenue are players. And a source of revenue are TV deals and But for me right now, what are the biggest revenues in the top clubs? They are right now, because maybe in the future it's going to change. But right now, when the biggest revenue, more than TV, is the money you get to sell players. So that's why I think you need a good scouting department. If you have a good scouting department, you sign with players, you're going to sell good players. But in the same way, also I think it's very important to have a good academy and invest in the academy. The investment you are doing in academy, even if after you are not going to sell this player, but you have a player that is going to be there for 10 years. He knows the culture of the club. He knows the philosophy. And he's going to transmit this philosophy for the new player, for the foreign player. And this also is going to be a player that if he's going to stay in the long term in your club, you are saving to pay a transfer for another player.
Completely.
Everything has to be according to the level of the team. Of course, if you have a club in third division, you cannot have the same scouting department that a club in first division, because the sale of your player is not going to be so high like in the first division. But of course you need. I think it's very important for me to have a scouting department. Maybe it cannot, if you don't have the money, you don't have the resource, it doesn't have to be big, but at least you need some people to scout player to get the best team possible. Because if you have sporting success, then you have commercial success, you have TV success, and
Exactly.
it's a lot related, with the sporting success, and everyone knows this. If you are in third division, you are going to have an amount of TV revenue, an amount of commercial revenue, and everything. Of course, you need this department to boost this revenue, but you need a good team, and to have a good team, you need, for me, academy, and you need good scouting department.
For sure. We are finishing. Okay, I just want to make another question from Deborah in a bit, but first, just to not to lose the focus on this subject. Like you said, every department is important. I see if the clubs want to be like a company, a successful company, if you don't have a scouting department, it's the same if you don't have HR department in a company that hires the best to work for you. So if you take a HR department from a company, it's it makes it very hard. So that's my point of view. And the question is just a question from Deborah. What coach had the most inspiration in your play?
Probably I will say my coach in Mallorca. When I was the second team of Mallorca, I think it was an important time of my career. He helped me to grow my football. I think it was a coach, Jaume Bausa, that he helped me a lot in my career. And he helped me, I don't know, to develop my football, I think I was close to play in the first team, and if I were been playing in the first team, it was thanks to him. I had a lot of good coaches during my career. I'm lucky, to still have good coaches, and I feel privileged of this. But if I have to choose one, I choose this one because I was 19 years old. I think it was important time of my career. It was my debut also in professional football in Spain, and he helped me out.
Thank you. So thank you very much, Ramon. Unfortunately, Oliver probably had some technical issue, but it was great to have him, and for sure, also he is gonna watch later. So thank you, Oliver, also for sharing your knowledge. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you a lot, Ramon. It's always a pleasure talking to you, and it's great what you guys are doing in there in Canada, and all the success for you guys. And speak to you soon. Okay.
My pleasure. Thank you very much. We speak soon.
Speak soon. Thank you, Ramon. Take care. Bye.